Okay, good morning to all. After mid-semester, this is the first class. So here we are going to start a new topic where we have seen the significance of importance of what is an enzyme, what is a main mechanism, or enzyme kinetics have been discussed till now. And even for the two lectures, 17 and 18, the answers for the mid-semester questions, some of the derivations have been posted. I hope you might have referred to it if you have doubt. Okay, many of you did mistake in second question where we have ignored the one of the forms in which the enzyme will be present, that is ES2. So because when 100 plates are there, even 25 people are occupying it without participating, still the chair is occupied by 25, right? So that way the enzyme has to be considered. It is in which form it is available. Initially there were 100 enzymes. So during a particular time, some of the enzymes are present in the form of ES2 also, which has to be considered. Okay, so if you don't consider, it is again fourth question. Fourth question we had that one, right, without participation of second enzyme. So that is the case I was discussing so far. Okay, we can discuss it again also if you need. Okay, so you refer to that video, lecture number 18 and 17 and 18 is on review answers to mid-semester questions. Okay, so this is lecture number 19 in which we are going to start a new topic. Am I still audible? Audible? One of you, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay, fine. So in this lecture, we will discuss about enzyme stabilization. Okay. So we have seen that the enzymes are finding, actually enzymes are a natural product, right? Natural form of proteins which are present in nature, but they are suitable to work in the natural environment, right? But however, as a human, we try to exploit its functionalities for the benefit of large scale production in the industries. So that way it needs to be adjusted, readjusted, right? So first, if you look at the some of the industries in which these enzymes are being used are detergent industries, food industries, animal nutrition for animal nutrition products, juice and flavoring agents, in cosmetic industries, as a medication and pharmaceutical industries, in the production of leather, silk, or even chemical and research and development activities also, these enzymes are being widely applied. Okay. So what is the role of these enzymes in these industries? They are going to be used as a biocatalyst, right? But we know that in nature, as I said, these enzymes are naturally produced for the natural conditions that is prevailing. It may be extreme conditions, okay? It may be cold condition or hot condition, or where the sulfur ore is present, like the different zones these enzymes are present. So we are just identifying, okay, it is able to manage this much, okay, take it out and isolate it and keep in our own condition. Only thing is we have to optimize it, we have to provide the same condition, working conditions, right? So that way stabilizing of these enzymes to a given temperature range or given extreme pH range, or it needs to be even stabilized using alkalis, acids, salts and surfactants. Because why we have to do that is, before using it, because in our in industry we are going to have some extreme temperature conditions, or we will be using extreme pH condition, or we may be adding surfactant into the system, or we may be adding acid into the system or salt into the system. So if we should be clearly know that when I introduce this enzyme to such conditions, whether it will able to survive there also or not. So that way we have to check it, and also otherwise we have to modify or we have to stabilize the properties of these enzymes so that they will be suitable for these conditions. Okay, so because we have seen that some of the applications, like if you are doing washing, we will be doing it at 60 to 70 degrees Celsius, or if you have a look at the textile industry, we will be operating the desizing at 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. Starch gelatinization is done at 100 degrees Celsius. And there are some cases where the product, where the soluble substrate or the product solubility and stability also we have to consider when you are choosing a particular enzyme for a given operation, right? So obviously we have to check the compatibility, right? Like it's like a marriage, when you want to perform, whether this family is compatible with other family, or this bride and groom are able to match with each other. All that needs to be done either scientifically, or some people do it unscientifically also. Okay, so we should always bet for scientific reasons. Okay, so remember that they can occur under high salt concentration in the industry. If you look at food industry, these enzymes, all these reactions will be taking place under high salt concentration, or maybe in alkaline conditions also, or in some cases these reactions or these catalytic reactions will be performed in the presence of detergents, surfactants also, right? So obviously we need to do the stability. We have to ensure that enzyme will survive. Mainly it's not about just surviving. We want the same activity, same ability to catalyze the reaction should be maintained. That is more important. I mean, obviously it will perform. We want to maintain performance consistently. Say like our CGPA in +2, you got 98 percentile, first year 9-pointer, then slowly you get your circle enlarges and you get a new friends, new your what do you call, your status changes, right? Your profile changes. So obviously we have to maintain our performance throughout. So that's what is being challenged, and I hope many of you have maintained it. We are in final year now. Okay, so we have to look into that part, that we have to ensure that the catalytic performance, that means that what we need talk in terms of enzyme activity. We want to ensure the enzyme activity to be the same throughout the course of the reaction, right, for a longer period. Okay, the stability as well as the performance of the enzyme needs to be consistent. Okay, so if you look at the, because in industries some of the reactions are performed in under the multi-phase system, right, gas liquid interface. Some of the reactions will consuming oxygen, there some will be producing CO2 gases, or we have liquid interfaces, or we have aqueous organic to liquid phase reactions where organic phase is used as a carrier for the substrate or product, or in the presence of some of the solvents like acetone or acetic acid, some of the ethanol also. Okay, so there is a need to stabilize the enzyme against all these thermal deactivation, or also in presence of these detergents, or in presence of different pH. Okay, so for all this we have to ensure that this our enzyme will have stability which for a longer time. Okay, so we have seen that enzymes are protein molecule consists of very much folded polypeptide chains of amino acids that are essential to perform an array of biological biochemical reactions. We have seen the mechanism in detail also. Okay, so the order of these amino acids in the protein will determine the tertiary structure through the molecular geometry and intramolecular chemical interactions. And based on this amino acid composition only, the proteins will be able to incorporate both the acidic functional groups as well as the basic functional groups, which will be playing an important role in their structure, which is about the physical structure. So their expression can be related to resistance of unfolding the forces, because of the protein's conformations will be resulting in less soluble state due to the occurrence of structural changes, aggregations, or by precipitations. Why we are talking about this? The stability will get differed when you are changing. We have seen the effect of other factors in one of the lectures, right? The effect of pH we have seen. Every enzyme will be active in a particular pH range, beyond which their activation they get deactivated, right? Because naturally the structure of, first thing is about the structure gets affected, the groups will get dissociated, so that way the active sites may get occupied with some other foreign molecules also. That way there are various reasons by which the enzyme may get deactivated. The main thing is about this enzyme solubility. So if you look at this enzyme solubility, they may change their structure and it will undergo modifications which may be resulting from the exposure of different residues to the surrounding environment. We have seen different constituents are there in any microbial cell, or the enzymes derived from it. Okay, so a few of the remarkable features of these enzymes are their functional diversity and versatility derived from each constituent amino acid having a different side chain with a specific chemistry and polarity, and from flexible and numerous ways in which these polypeptide chains can fold. So mainly what happens when you are taking this enzyme to extreme conditions is this structure gets affected. So we can call it as deactivation. So what is the deactivation? If you want to define it technically, so denaturation is the unfolding of this tertiary structure of the enzymes into a disordered polypeptide. So thereby which the key residues are no longer aligned closely enough to continue the participation in functional or structural stabilizing interactions. They fail to do the duty once they are dissociated from a particular order. Okay, so that this denaturing will be influenced. This, if the denaturing influence is removed, so this tendency can be reversed. So what is the thing? Whatever conditions that are prevailing to destabilize the enzyme, obviously if you are removing it, it is a reversible process. That means the structure will come back to its original way and it will give the same performance. Remember, there are different type of bonds are involved in it. Okay, so if you want to properly perform the biological duty, if you look at there are different forces. Okay, so such as hydrogen bonds are there, solvation forces are there, electrostatic forces are there, or weak van der Waals forces are also one of the bonds which are holding the molecules are aligned. They are aligned in a particular fashion, right? So this interaction can be controlled through screening of the charge by increasing the salt concentration of the solution, or by changing the charge density on the surface if it is electrostatic force is involved. Okay, so thereby the only thing is we have to play around the environment, prevailing environment, right? So if you look at the ranges here, so if you look at, if you consider the low ionic strength, so the what is going to be the effect of it on the adsorption? If you generally at low ionic strength, the observed absorption is to be maximum at the isoelectric point, whereas the unfolding of the tertiary structure of protein reaches a maximum. You can see the peak here. You can see that is Z value. So you have pH value is 3, pH value is 11.5. If time is 1 minute, time is 2 hours. You can see the electron density versus that. So you will have the isoelectric point. This is the isoelectric point. So it is expected that you can see that on here. So the unfolding of this tertiary structure is greater at a pH of 11.5, which is its isoelectric point. Okay, so this isoelectric point PL. So here only this dissociation, the unfolding of the tertiary structure is maximum. Okay, so proteins have a low solubility at this PL, this point of isoelectric, because the effective charge of the molecule is 0 at this isoelectric point, and with the decreased repulsion and electrostatic interaction between the molecules, they form clumps and then they tend to precipitate. So that way, instead of arranged, if they become precipitate, what means that, so the active sites are not available for the substrate molecule to go and get absorbed, right? So that is why obviously we are going to have, as a chemical engineer, we were concerned that, so the active sites are not available for the reaction to take place, so the rate of the reaction will be reduced. Okay. So the achievement of a stable and active enzyme is often a challenging effort, because remember, as I told earlier also, these enzymes are not naturally evolved to work in industrial scale operations. As I said, they for the as a survival of fittest, every enzymes or microorganism, according to the environment where it is born, it is able to adjust itself slowly and they survive there, right? So that is the way they evolved, but we want to do it in large scale in an artificial environment. So we obviously we need to stabilize this enzyme or give some support. Okay, so that is the key here. So because the biological activity will depend on the three-dimensional native structure, hence the catalytically active, and any significant conformational change will be leading to the inactivation. So that way it is very essential that whatever enzyme that is going to be used in the industrial scale, we have to ensure that they are stable. So for that we have to follow some enzyme stabilization techniques also, so that we will discuss after a little while. So there are a number of enzyme based processes which have been commercialized for producing valuable products. As a chemical engineer we know that. So however, despite their great potential, there are a lot of challenges. Their performance is being hampered by undesirable stability, catalytic efficiency getting reduced, and they are becoming less specific. Okay, so these challenges needs to be addressed, and to address these challenges, there are different methods which are being followed for making this enzyme stabilized. Okay, so out of that, as in this particular course we will be concerned about one method which is called enzyme immobilization. Okay, so before that, as we should at least know what is what. So in that, with that idea, so I wanted to share with you what are the different enzyme stabilization methodologies that are available. enzyme stabilization methods which are available. Okay, so we'll look into them. So there is one of the method is first and foremost method is this screening and isolation of enzyme from the extremophiles. As I said, I want something to be operated at 500 degrees Celsius and 2 atmospheric pressure. So first and easiest method is find a person who can directly work efficiently at this condition. For that, what you will do, I will find out a condition where the temperature is 500 degrees Celsius to atmosphere. Or in natural cases, I can say that I want to do my experiment at minus 30 degree 1 atmospheric pressure. So instead of taking an enzyme which is optimum at 30 degrees centigrade and stabilize it to match here, first choice will be to find an enzyme at this location itself, where you go to a place in the earth where temperature is minus 30 degree and identify one of the enzyme from there and take it out and bring it to your lab and use it, multiply, you grow it and you multiply the microorganism which is producing that enzyme, then you can use it in your application, right? Simple. So otherwise what you have to do, you have to hire because if it is not feasible, then we have to hire a smaller one and we have to modify it and adjust it to work for our condition. So that is the idea here. So first and simplest method is directly go and get a person who can do your expected performance. Okay, so that way there are microorganisms which are called as extremophiles. So these are the microorganisms that have evolved to exist in variety of extreme environments and fall into the number of different classes that are called as thermophiles, acidophiles, alkalophiles, psychrophiles or barophiles. Okay, so there are several other methods are also available. It means, as the name indicates, they know to survive at different thermal means what temperatures. Acido means acid condition, alkalo means basic conditions. So like that, the names represent different type of extreme environment. So for example, there are these extremophiles will be surviving at, as I said, minus degree Celsius 5 to up to 130 degrees Celsius, or is extreme pH 0 to 12. It's not that same will survive in both. We have particular enzymes or microorganism which are efficient at minus 5. There is another microorganism which is efficient at 130 degree. There is something which is more active at 0. There is something which are surviving at pH 12, like that. So salt concentration also 3. You know what is the salt concentration of our ocean and sea? So we have different conditions. So if you consider up to 35% also, some of the microorganism can survive. And there are from atmospheric pressure to 1000 bar also, some of the microorganisms can survive. So the thing is to screen it, go to that particular condition. As I think even during introduction lecture also I have told you that one of the benefits of these microorganisms is that you can get who will work there better in their own environment. As I told you, have a lake or pond near your home which is not used for past 30 years, or you consider a well also. What will happen for 30 years nobody used it, means what it is containing very less oxygen, right? So because the top layer is covered with all the dust or particle which don't allow the sunlight to go inside or oxygen to go inside. But if you take a little sample of water out of it, bring it to your lab, you will find out some microorganisms still surviving there. There may be in less number, but still they survive under these conditions, right? So that microorganism or that enzyme we will be isolating. So that's called screening. When you take a sample water from this pond which is not used for past 30 years, you bring it to lab, we will be screening the microorganism. There will be 100 microorganisms there, but among which you will find out which is the best. Which is more in number means what they are able to multiply in more number, they are able to reproduce, they are able to give offspring, right? So that way that that bacteria is surviving there, or that microorganism, you can consider even enzymes. Okay, so they are able to present there well in these conditions. Okay, so that thing is what called as screening. So once we screen it, then among out of the 1000 or 100 microorganism you see, you will be isolating that one microorganism, and that will be grown in large number, and that can be, you say that okay, this well is having a pH of 1 is the pH and the temperature is 10 degrees Celsius. Then we say the What else? Salt concentration is so and so. Let me say 10% salt concentration. So I have isolated something, and the same I will introduce into this pond in large number. What will happen? That is called biopurification. I can purify this lake and it will give a crystal clear water. See, plastic waste you have to remove manually. What we are talking about is whatever other nutrients or other things which are present in the lake will be consumed by these bacteria or the algae. Mainly algae performs better. Okay. So forget about this enzyme. So this that's called algae will be used. So if you introduce that algae in large number into the pond again, what will happen? It will purify this pond. So that way you can purify whatever. Even people are proposing to the ministry, means even the Ganga Jal ministry is there. Now we want to purify the river Ganga. So the only constraint with this flowing water is they are asking, sir, where this water can be hold for some 10 days. They are still identifying because this ministry, because river Ganga is running through several states. So where we want to have a zone where the water can be hold for some 15 days to 20 days, it is possible to purify the river. But still people are still working to identify that thing. That way they are like naturally works. You need to do nothing. You are identifying some of the microorganism or algae or enzyme from the same source. You are producing it, and only thing is what we will be doing in this zone where we can do the purification, we have to maintain the conditions uniformly. So once we know the area, we will maintain this particular pH, particular condition, particular salt concept. Because this microorganism or algae to survive there, we will add some nutrition needs to be maintained. So that can be one of the best ways. So that way this Ganga river can be cleaned. That is the physical way. Other thing are just like using the money, no output. Okay. So the nature only will be helping us to come out of our problems. Okay. So that way, as I said, there is a deep sea hydrothermal vent. What is the deep sea hydrothermal vent? So it's like gas and vapor will be released from under the sea. Okay. So there is hot spring areas or sulfuric fields are there. I'll show some photos. Okay. So if you look at this kind of this sulfur rich area, you will see it's like yellow in color. Okay. So there are some of the microorganisms or enzymes which survive under these conditions. Okay. And you can see some of the zones like hot springs of these Pozzoli. You have Fisiarelli hot spring. You can see that hydrothermal vents here. It's like gas which is getting released. Okay. So there are some of the microorganisms or some natural things are there. So from here also we can take out some of the enzymes which can be used for industrial scale applications. So that is the first method. What is that I was saying? So the screening and isolation of enzyme from the extremophiles. Okay. So you can see that one also. People have been using it. Some of the enzymes like amylase, protease, and esterase. So they have been taken out from the extreme conditions, and they are used in desizing of cotton, degumming of silk production, sand wash, polyester hydrolysis, ring open polymerization, like that. So they have been used. Okay. So that way they are able to provide this kind of effect, that is increase the oxidative stability of the material, improved dyeability of the material, depiling or improvement of dyeing of polyester fibers, like that. So these enzymes help in you are making your product more quality one. Okay. So if you look at the other methods that are available, I'm just giving a brief to it because our concern is only about immobilization of enzyme, which we'll discuss in detail. Okay. So there is another method called as engineering of the enzymes. So engineering of the enzyme is nothing but you will be modifying the enzymes. Okay. So in the past, an enzyme based processes were designed around the limitations of the enzyme. That was the case earlier. Nowadays we can custom tailor made. It's like ready-made shirt, right? So only 40 is there, 42 size is there, your size is 41, or 38 is there, 40 is there, your size is 39. What you will do, either you have to fit tight dress 38 or little bit loose shirt 40, like that. So that was the case earlier. But what about if you are stitching it, you get your own thing, right? Same thing. That's the engineering of enzyme. So nowadays we have all the things. This enzyme is engineered to fit the process specifications. So that way this protein engineering is a separate course. protein engineering, where what the people do is they can design and construct novel proteins by the manipulating the genes, DNAs. Okay, so this rational protein design or direct evolution allows the alteration of enzyme properties to meet whatever limitations faced earlier. Okay, so we can constrain whatever constraint is there, we can make a tailor-made protein can be made, and these enzymes can be used. Okay, so another thing is functionalization of enzyme technique. So what we are to do is covalent chemical modification. It has been emerged as a powerful alternative to the site-directed mutagenesis and direct evolution for tailoring enzymes. So it's again another method of tailoring the enzyme. It's not modifying the DNA kind of thing. We are just chemically modifying it by introducing it to a certain environment. Okay. So for example, so if you consider chemical modification of amino acid side chains allows a greater, almost unlimited variety of groups to be introduced. What we this whenever we say functionalization, we introduce some functional groups like OH group, CH groups, or any other NO groups, all that also. Okay, so that way we introduce a functional group means we are bringing in some defects. When you say some other group is attached to it, for the actual surface it got some defects, right? So that way we introduce some of the functional groups to the enzyme, so which will alter its properties, which will make it more stable. It will help the enzyme to be more active, kind of thing. Okay, so there are different methods, or this also again in detail, there are a lot of methods available for functionalizing this thing. Okay, so thus despite many potential advantages, several classical methods used for protein modification creates a mixture of proteins as a result of poor discrimination of insufficiently efficient chemistry. That's what there are obviously challenges is involved when you do this type of functionalization also. Okay, so next we have an immobilization of enzymes, so that we are going to discuss in detail. So the first what we have seen, isolation, screening of enzymes from the extreme conditions. Second one is protein engineering. Third one is chemically functionalize the enzyme. So another one is immobilization of enzyme. So then another under immobilization of enzymes, we also have encapsulation of enzymes also there, another technique. We'll discuss that also. And there is another one called medium engineering, which means that the medium can be altered, because we know that it's not only about the enzyme, we have substrate is present, product is present. Obviously there will be influence of the pH, we have seen, and we have seen the salt concentration is also going to do things. So how we are controlling the water medium in which the reaction is taking place. Okay, sometimes we may have to introduce some of the detergents also. So that way, by modifying the medium also, we are able to maintain the enzyme stability. Okay, so that's also one of the technique which is being called as medium engineering. So if you go through this, the structural stability of enzymes is controlled by the interaction between the protein molecules and the surrounding solvent molecules. So mostly water is the universal solvent, right? So I can easily say solvent also. So whatever is the change that we can do it in the microenvironment of the biocatalyst, not only are able to modulate the enzyme activity and stability, but also they shape the enzyme selectivity also. One of the main variables in the biotransformation is the water content in the enzyme micro environment. As I said, that solvent also means water is major content in it. The water activity is relevant because it involves the effect of water mass action on the chemical equilibrium, because that is it is going to affect the mass transfer at which the substrate is traveling and getting absorbed at the surface, right? So how it facilitates this thing. Okay, it's like a lubricant. The role of the water also, it can say that lubricant acts as a lubricant. Okay, there are several methods which are being used to control the water activity in the biotransformations. So that way, that also being followed to stabilize the enzymes. Okay, so how it is being done, even some of the native proteins, now if pH is less than your isoelectric point, or pH is greater than that also, so you will get some protein with positive charges, protein with negative charges. Okay, so there will be pH is going to shift the activity. Okay, so that we have discussed earlier also, the effect of pH. And there are other methods, they are called polymers and surfactants. So the stability, what we can do, we can introduce some of the polymers or surfactants, so they will be enhancing the stability of the catalyst. Okay, so the stabilizing effect of polymers addition to the enzyme formulations may promote the exclusion of the protein molecules from part of the solvent and prevent the detrimental effects of the environment upon the enzyme molecules. Okay. So there is another method called is storage stabilization of enzymes. That means you have to store it at appropriate conditions, right? So how long you want to store it also you have to enter there, that also needs to be taken care. So the storing of enzyme, if it is short term storage or long term storage, accordingly you have to keep in the appropriate conditions. So there is a lot of buffer solution will be recommended. Store it under these conditions like that. Okay, or if it is less than minus temperatures, you have to maintain it in a pool of liquid nitrogen also. Okay, so how it is to be done, again it is being widely researched. So people interested in this work also perform research in this area. Okay, and we have now nanotechnology has come into picture. We have lot of nanoparticles are being there, right? So nanoparticle in different sizes are also there. It's nowadays it is like nano encapsulation of the enzyme, a small size nanoparticle within which the enzymes can be encapsulated. Okay, so there are different methods are also available. So for the enzyme encapsulation, so the encapsulation of this enzyme contemplates the entrapment in a polymer network, we can say gel lattice, for in a silica soluble gel method, or in a membrane device, or in a microcapsules. And nowadays nanocapsules are there, so in which we try to immobilize this, entrap these enzymes into it. So that way these nanoparticles are being used as the enzyme immobilization carriers. This word we will often use it, carriers. Okay, so what we do is these enzymes are immobilized onto this nano-sized scaffolds, like different nanoparticle means it's not only nanotube. Okay, it can be a nanosphere, okay, or it can be a nanofiber. All are in nano size. This length will be some 10 nanometers like that. So this may be 5 nanometers like that. Okay, so different, whatever is in nano size, it may be different shapes. Okay, so in such material different size, in these enzymes are immobilized onto the surfaces. So this enzyme loading on nanoparticles has been achieved up to 10 weight percentage. It's like 10 weight, it's like you take 90 grams of nanoparticle, you can take 10 grams of enzymes, so that can be encapsulated. That way we are able to achieve 10 weight percent. Obviously whether it will, because whatever is the percentage you are encapsulating, whether will they survive when you introduce into the reactor or the prevailing conditions, that also needs to be studied whenever we do these encapsulation studies. Okay, why we want to make use of this nanoparticle, why not others? Obviously before these nanoparticles are being used, we used carbon support, Vulcan carbon. Simply you might have heard the word activated carbon. Okay, activated carbon you can get easily also. You burn anything, leaf you burn in under proper condition, you burn the coconut shell, you burn the banana leaves, banana peels or orange peels. Okay, so whatever thing you can achieve, burn it to get activated carbon. It's not burning means not simply, it is like we have different names for it technically. So we can get carbon, so on which we will be supporting. Okay, so even I will show you a demo video. One of my student has done it in our department. I made him to show the video. We'll display that. Okay, so that immobilization can be done. Earlier it was done on carbon. Nowadays we feel like nanoparticle is the ideal support for the enzyme immobilization, because there is a minimized diffusional limitations. That means particles are able to diffuse easily when you use this nanomaterials. Support maximum surface area. Obviously activated carbon, let me say it is like a 600, what is a specific surface area means, meter square per gram. How much surface area it provides per unit mass of the substance is specific area. Okay, so let me say if it is 600, these nanoparticles are able to give, you can search also what is the active surface area for carbon nanotubes. So you get up 1200 or 2500 meter square per gram, like that you are able to get. So that means many-fold for the same gram of material or for the same gram of the support, we are able to achieve more active surface area available. That means more surface area is available, more enzyme will get entrapped onto the surface. And for us, what is the need? When you have more surface, more enzymes are present, we are concerned about the active sites available in the enzymes. And there is more enzyme, we are going to have more active sites present for the substrate to get absorbed, so that our whatever mechanism we have discussed can take place. Okay, so that way this whatever, because this claim of nanomaterials are ideal support, several theoretical as well as experimental studies have demonstrated the particle mobility, which is governed by the particle size and solution viscosity, will be impacting the intrinsic activity of the enzymes which are attached to the support particle or carrier material. Okay, so that is another thing called as enzyme stabilization by silk. Like fabrics are there, instead of powder particles, now you have carbon cloth also there nowadays. So that way fabrics are being used on which you can support your enzymes onto it. Okay, it's not only for this enzyme application. If you are going to do project in different streams, you might be carrying out also. So this kind of support stabilization are being followed for other materials. So if, for example, somebody is working in process control where the wastewater treatment is being done, or for that we need a catalyst, so that catalysts are being stabilized, so we need anode cathode for that means. So there also we are using this kind of techniques for stabilizing the catalyst onto the surface. Even if you say I am doing some fluidized bed reactor, so in which what you will be doing is you will have a support on which your catalyst will be supported on it to it. Okay, so here we are only in place of catalyst, we are saying that we are supporting our enzymes onto the surface of the carrier materials. So because that is the purpose of doing all this is, if it is, you see, enzymes can be present in liquid aqueous form also, because they may be easily soluble, right? So what will happen if a product is formed? I have to take out the product from the system, right? What will happen? These enzymes will be along with this enzyme. So that means the cost of isolating the enzyme from the product is going to be high when we don't perform this type of enzyme stabilization or enzyme immobilization techniques. Okay, so that we will discuss in detail. So that is our concern. Why for that we should know why we have to do the enzyme immobilization. Okay, so why we have to do is, it is very difficult or impractical to separate the enzyme for reuse in a batch operation. As I said, if it is a liquid condition, liquid state, it is dissolvable, right? So once a reaction is done, product is there, you have a product, very good, I got product. But we know that enzyme, whatever initial enzyme E naught is the concentration, finally also it is going to be present as E naught, right? In between it might have been in different phase, but once reaction is done, enzymes are there in this solution. So it is how to, so this, we have seen that it is easily soluble in water. So if it is soluble in water, it means that it's not, you cannot filter it out simply, right? So that way there is a lot of cost or energy or techniques are required. It may be tedious process may be involved to again get back the enzyme to reuse into it. When you draw in CRE, easily you say, you draw a line and say that recycle. But how difficult it is to get that separation of these enzymes from the product or anything, any separation, right? Even if it is like a chemical, we will be using some distillation column, absorption column, or our solvent recovery process, right? So that we have to do, right? Everywhere it is going to be the same. Separation of the raw materials or the catalyst from the final product stream is going to cost us. Okay, so that is the reason we are looking for some of the immobilization techniques. Okay, so why? Because once if it is immobilized, it is easy for me to use some of the techniques and recover the enzymes from the product stream. Okay, the mainly that will be useful for in the fluidized bed reactor. I want to recover that whatever is a support material going there, I'll be able to stop it and get it back. Okay, even if it is deactivated, we will use a catalytic activation part. We will withdraw some of the immobilized enzyme support, and we will be activating it and sending it back, right? So that and all can be facilitated if we are able to immobilize the enzymes. Okay, so that's why when you are immobilizing an enzyme, so it will be able to show some selectivity altered chemically or physical properties, and it may simulate the realistic natural environment where the enzyme came from, that is the cell. Remember, these enzymes are produced in the cell, right? So that way it is now, it is like it is getting a home like atmosphere. So they will think I am at home, so I will be using my, I will be more enthusiastic there. Okay, so that way these enzymes will be performing better. Okay, so that is the point I want to say. So technically, if you want to see what is immobilization, it refers to different system or a technique in which there is a physical confinement or localization of the microorganism that will be permitting that economic reuse. So what is the purpose? Main purpose is economic point of view, right? So we want to reuse them, we want to isolate and reuse them. It's not that if it is not a big issue, we can just discard it along with the water, wastewater, right? So that is not the case here. Main purpose is we want to reuse it for our condition. So for economic reuse, we want to immobilize this microorganism. Also another reason is, like we have seen the other aspect of it. What is that? Stability. We want that to maintain its activity stability within the system during the course of the reaction in the reactor. So that is what one is there. One is about activation or stability. Second one is about separation. So the separation is mainly for economic reuse, that we want to separate and reuse it. That is the reason we want to do this part. But here it is more important. So there are two purposes we have to do this enzyme immobilization. One is to, if when you are encapsulating or when you are supporting it onto a support, so these enzymes will be perform the catalytic activity, we call it as enzyme activity is more, and the stability, life, all these are good when you are doing the immobilization. Second reason, this is the first reason. The second reason is we want to separate out, because nobody in the product we want to have the enzyme, we cannot send it the enzyme along with the product, right? So this needs to be isolated for purity of the product as well as reuse of the enzyme. Okay, so that way it is important with respect to economic point of view. Here we can say economic point of view. Here why we say economic point of view? Yes, obviously if the catalyst is not active, what will happen? My rate of the reaction is going to be slow. So that means our conversion rate is going to be altered, right? So raw material conversion into useful product will be affected. So that is why also it is important we immobilize the enzymes. So what is that? It is, as we said, it is like encapsulation kind of thing. So it is imprisonment of a cell or enzyme in a. So remember, it's not only enzymes are immobilized, we have cell immobilization also. Even micro cells also immobilized. So in this model we are discussing about enzyme immobilization. The techniques are same for cell immobilization also. Okay, so that way immobilization is common for enzyme cells, only some conditions may be changing. Okay, so what is this initial interest in this immobilized cells? We was directed towards their use as an alternative to certain immobilized enzymes, since whole cells obviated the need for enzyme isolation and purification. So the support or matrix will be allow the exchange of medium. The medium will be consisting of substrate or effector or inhibitor molecules. There are two major advantages when you do immobilization. So there is increased functional efficiency and there is enhanced reproducibility. So that's what we get to think. So in addition, these immobilized cultures tend to have a higher level of activity and are more resilient to the environmental perturbation, that is the sudden changes in the conditions prevailing in the medium. Excuse me. Okay, so whenever we are encapsulating, it's like we are protecting. It's like for our mobile phone, we put a wrapper or a back cover, means what? It gives more support, right? Whenever you drop it, earlier days before case, no? If you drop the phone, that's our display will be gone. We have to change it for 1,500 or original 3,000, like that. Now with the case covers, many times we are dropping, still our phone is safe. Also this temper glass we are keeping, right? So that means what we are encapsulating into, we are providing some safety support to it, right? Same way here also, these enzymes are cells, microorganisms. So they are microorganism cells. So they also get immobilized. So when you do that immobilization, they will be lowering the broth viscosity and makes the rheological features more favorable for oxygen supply and mass transfer. Okay. Another advantage is there is a reduction in the protease activity and contamination risk. So they are less prone to contamination when you are immobilizing the things. Okay, so if you want to list out the advantages of immobilizing microorganism cells, so they are can be reused. As I said, it is easy to separate out from the product and reuse. So that way, thereby we are continuously using it by putting it in a loop, and the labor involved in is going to be less, and there is a savings in the capital cost and the investment, and the reaction time is going to be minimum. That means what, more active enzymes are more active. Okay, so there is a less chance of contamination in the product present in the product, and the stability will be more. That means what, enzyme stability or whatever immobilized cells, the stability is more, and it is easy to control the product. When you have a well settled conditions or a good prevailing conditions, it is going to provide us the improved control of the process, and this ratio, high enzyme substrate ratio, can be maintained because the activity, enzyme activity is going to be the same if you are immobilizing it. Okay, an immobilized system can be maintained via maintain viable cells over an extended period of time. The entrapped cells are protected against shear forces, and subsequently a simple bioreactor can be used for this kind of reactions. So here you can see an photograph of a microreactor where the immobilized cells are used, and there are obviously some disadvantages also involved with this thing of with this type of immobilization. So the disadvantages, it is used in the its industrial use. Immobilized enzyme industrial use is limited so far because people need some modify whatever prevailing condition is there. If they have to modify it, there should be some huge capital investment has to be done, right? So that limitation is there, because immobilized means obviously you also have to prevailing condition needs to be altered accordingly. Okay, so there are some cases where there is a loss of catalytic properties in some enzyme when you are immobilizing it. So that way, it's not that every enzyme can be immobilized. There are some enzymes where the performance may be decreasing if you are immobilizing onto it. Okay, so there are some enzymes which becomes unstable also when you immobilize it. Okay, so enzymes are inactivated by the heat generation in the system. That means if it is immobilized, so if there is a heat generation in the system, they even that enzyme tend to inactivate. Within, when you say the system, it is within the entrapment, as I said, nanoparticle within which the enzyme is present. So it is confined now. So that is getting heating, that heat is not moving out. So that way, even in mobile phone, that's what happens. So when you put a high case, if it gets hot, it is not easily cooled by the environment because your casing is hampering the heat transfer. So that way they get inactivated, enzymes that are getting inactivated. So obviously when you have this immobilized thing, so there is a high cost for isolation, purification and recovery of the active enzyme is involved. Okay. So when you do this, check time. Yeah, we'll stop on for another 5-10 minutes. Okay. Actually, we are going to discuss it in detail. That's why I am just giving overall view of this, all these techniques. Okay. So if you look at the binding of the cell to the immobilizing support, there is a two-step process is involved. Okay. So in the first stage, the cells are spontaneously attracted to the support surface due to the van der Waals force. What we do is actually you take a solvent. We will do this immobilization in a liquid phase. Let me say you take a solvent in which you first take the support. Let me say Vulcan carbon. I will add it to it, or even nanomaterial carbon nanotubes you can add. So you add it into the solvent. So first you mix it well. Let me say even nowadays ultrasonication is used. So mix it well. Then you introduce this enzyme into it. Again you mix it well. What will happen? Automatically by van der Waals forces itself, all these enzymes will go and attach to the surface of the support. Okay. So that's what is being done. That is the first step. It is because of the naturally van der Waals forces aided by the entrapment of the cells in the pores and other irregularities. Remember, when I say particle, when I say carbon material also, even if we say simple carbon, we know that within a catalyst surface, it's not that only the outer surface is available. We know that every particle will have pores, micropores will be there, mesopores will be there. I hope you might have studied them in catalysis course if you have done that elective. So there will be different type of pore of different sizes, from millimeter, micrometer to nanometer scale also. You are going to have, we have seen in mass transfer also, this Knudsen diffusion takes place within these pores of the catalyst, right? So all these, through these places it will reach and it will get attached. That's what happened during this thing. And there will be surface immobilization will promote. Okay, so there will be multiple layer of enzyme also will be taking place. So the immobilized cells grow as a more or less continuous layer or a tissue-like structure on the surface of the support matrix. There can be uniformly deposition of all these enzymes on the pores or the outer surface. Okay, so generally the surface immobilization promotes the natural tendency of plant cells to aggregate, which will improve the synthesis and accumulation of the secondary metabolites. And there are some special advantage of this method over the other method. That is the absence of any physical restriction to mass transfer between the culture medium and the biomass surface. And what type of matrix or supports are being used? So what are the desired properties of it? Obviously that the matrix to be used should be cheap and easily available. The reaction with the medium and enzyme should be as minimum as possible. That is what chemically neutral. Okay, so it should not, that support itself should not participate in the reaction. Okay, a wide range of matrix is used for immobilization. If you look at some of the materials which are being used as the support for immobilization, remember these are all our syllabus part. Okay, so there are different methods, materials which are being used. They can be classified into three major categories. Either they are natural polymers, there are synthetic polymers, and there are inorganic polymers. Okay, inorganic materials which are being used. So if you look at natural polymers, you know that well-known natural polymers are starch is being used as the one of the thing. This chitosan chitin, you take any fish shell or crab or any prawn we are taking now, all these waste or outer shells of this material, we are able to get some chitosan or chitin. So that way we can use. So these are some of the commonly used natural polymers as the support. They are used in other applications also. Cellulose is one of the widely used available, which is available in abundant, right? Cellulose is there, starch is available, pectin is there, gelatin is there. Okay, for example, this chitin, they will have this enzyme binds to the OH groups. Okay, and there are synthetic polymers. So there can be ion exchange polymers, and they are insoluble support with porous support. The porous surface trap and holds the enzymes or cells.
Example, DAA glucose, PVC, UV activated polyethylene glycol have been used in the synthetic polymers. Whereas in case of inorganic polymers, zeolite, ceramics, diatomaceous earth, silica, glass, activated carbon and charcoal are being used.
So what is the method we are using? As a chemical engineer, we want to immobilize, right? We won't buy it ready-made in the industry. First we will we'll buy the enzymes or we'll have the enzymes. We have to, there is a unit operation to perform this immobilization also within the industry, right? So it's our responsibility to design this also. So there are different methods are there. Broadly they can be classified as chemical methods and physical methods. So the former one, that is a chemical method, is covalent bond formation dependent, and there are physical method which are non-covalent bond dependent. That is when the reaction is involved, chemical method, and no chemical reaction is involved, it is a physical method. So if you look at some of the techniques available, so we have carrier bound enzymes, we have entrapment or encapsulation enzymes, or we have cross-linking enzymes. Okay, so for example, if this enzyme is like this, having a structure like this, so what is doing that carrier bound enzyme means there is a carrier at the center and these enzymes are surrounding that structure. Okay, that is called binding to a carrier. So that way we call it as carrier bound enzymes. Or there are cases where these enzymes are encapsulated, they are put into a bottle kind of thing. If you say this, they are entrapped into a structure of the carrier material or support material. For example, in silica gel, they are all inside, not the outside of the silica gel. Okay, and there is a cross linking one where they attached in a certain way, so that it is forming a cross linking polymers. Okay, so these enzymes are cross linked one. Okay, so if you want to classify properly what are the different methods available, we can, as I said, we can classify them as physical methods and chemical methods. So in physical method, adsorption is a well known method, right? So this enzyme, if you consider this as enzyme, so on the surface of the adsorbate, so these enzymes are getting adsorbed, that is the method, adsorption method. We'll discuss all these methods in detail later. So just only to know the different methods available. We have entrapment method, our gel or fiber is entrapped. Entrapping is done. Whenever we say entrapped, it is not outside the material support, it is inside the one. Okay, so there is micro encapsulation and there is a MOF, metal organic framework embedding is done. Okay, so that kind of entrapment is also done. Different type of entrapment or adsorption of the surface. So these are some of the physical methods, and there are some chemical methods where it is what can be covalent attachment. It's like covalent bond attachment, and other thing comes under the cross linking to the support matrix. Okay, so that way chemically modified substance we are getting here. So in this case it is physical methods. Okay, so there is no structure change, they are only either adsorbed to the surface or getting entrapped into the structure. So whereas here the bonds are formed, either it may be covalent or cross linking, which can happen in these cases. Okay, so if you want to list out the types of immobilization available, it's common for enzyme as well as cell. Okay, the next chapter module is cell culturing thing. So there also it is again repeated, that's why covered together for commonly. Okay, here, so the type of immobilization, we can say covalent bonding is most widely used method. Second widely used method is adsorption method, entrapment method, copolymerization, and encapsulation method. Okay, so these are 5 most commonly used types of immobilization. Yeah, I think we crossed the time. So we will see these methods, each method we will look into each method and what are the, how it is done, the advantages and limitations of each methods we will discuss in the next lecture. Okay, so if you have any clarification you can stay, others can leave. Well, in this lecture number 19 we have discussed about different techniques which are followed for enzyme stabilization. So in next lecture number 20 we will discuss about enzyme immobilization techniques. So in detail we will look into various techniques which are being used for immobilizing the enzymes, their advantages and limitations we will discuss. Thank you so much for joining my classroom. Meet you in the next lecture. Bye bye.